Hello everybody, welcome to the Fashion Bunker. Today we're going to be talking, and just like that, episode 6 of what used to be Sex and the City. Subscribe to my channel here on the tubes if you haven't already and you're enjoying my content. Thumb up this video. You can also push the join button next to the subscription button. Become a member today. Get access to extra perks. You can also join me on Patreon, superdacob all spelled together there as well. Thank you to all my members and patrons who have already pledged. This video is being filmed live in front of a virtual audience. I live stream every Saturday. You are all invited to partake in the conversation. Here we are, you guys. Welcome, everybody. Little tickle, tickle to all my wonderful viewers. Trina, tickle, tickle, tickle. Hello, everybody. Hello, hello, hello. Hello, hello. So we're talking, and just like that, episode 6 is over. So we're only 4 episodes away from the end of season 1 of And Just Like That. So, now, Diwali or Diwali, how do you pronounce it? I've done my homework. I've looked it up. You can spell it with a W or with a V, so it's either Diwali or Diwali. And Diwali, also spelled Diwali, is one of the most major religious festivals in Hinduism and Sikhism, lasting for 5 days from the 13th day of the dark half of the lunar month, Ashiva, to the 2nd day of the light half of the lunar month, Kartika. Observances of Diwali differ depending on region and tradition. So the whole concept of Diwali is transitioning into light, from darkness into light. And the idea of this episode, which was directed by Cynthia Nixon, Miranda directed her own self in this episode. It was all about transitioning. It was about letting go. It was about letting go of the pain of the mourning, which of course we never let go of the mourning, you guys. And I think the writers did a wonderful job in making it very clear and respectfully clear that Carrie will be mourning forever. But it was such a wonderful transition from that pain into hope for something new. And I went through the motions in that episode. Of course, there were cringe moments. Yes, there were cringe moments. But let's just repeat to ourselves for a second. The OG Sex and the City from back in the day, not an episode would pass by without a cringe moment. So for all those people out there making YouTube videos on this show, saying, how bad it is, or this is cringe, this is bad, like the same stuff that they're pointing out to be bad in this show were the stuff they're pointing out to have been good in the old show. I see you. So just saying. Now, so there's going to be, 10 episodes in this season. We're at episode 6. So what happens in this episode? Well, Carrie is looking for a new apartment, and in New York, to be shown an apartment like the one that they showed us is non-existent. It's like a dream. It doesn't exist. In fact, I was also watching, or better said, listening to the writers' podcast after the episode, and they said, well, an apartment like that doesn't exist in New York City. It's really hard to find. So they had to build it up in a studio, and they had to artificially light it up to make it look like it's surrounded by lights all the time. And there's the river in front of it, and everything was kind of illuminated artificially. They did the green screen. So they invested a lot of money to build this fictitious apartment. But to prove what point, I wonder. And I couldn't help but wonder, why would Carrie have to try for the nth time to move out of her little teeny tiny apartment in Manhattan? Just let her live there, for crying out loud. Just let her stay there. It's the cute little nest that she built for herself, and we know she's going to end up back there again. So I'm like, why spend such a huge budget for that empty, aseptic place? Why? It felt so clinical. And then I was listening to the writers' podcast, and, sure, they wrote what they wanted to write. So, of course, their intentions, if they tell you this is what we meant by it, well, then, that's what they meant by it. But I was thinking about the psychology of it and observing Carrie kind of accepting to move to buy this lofty suntan apartment, we could call it that way. Like, you can always be brown in that apartment because, like, you're always going to have to wear sun lotion because there's, and plus, you know, that glass, how the lights would hit through the glass, it would heat up even more. So Seema is showing Carrie all the apartments possible that, you know, she has the power to show her. And she is a powerful lady who knows her, a realtor who knows her apartments around New York. And, you know, Carrie felt kind of obliged to buy this one. She's like, I can't just keep saying no. Like, show me more, show me more, show me. So I just bought this one. I'm like, well, you are a millionaire, so I guess for you buying an apartment just like that, and just like that, I bought an apartment, would be like for me saying, and just like that, I decided to order 20 chicken nuggets instead of 9. But to each their own. So she ends up in this multi-million-dollar apartment and doesn't like it, sweetie. So, and anyway, the psychology of it all. Why? Well, the episode is called Diwali. It's this festival, this religious moment, festivity that brings us into the light. So it's kind of fascinating that her apartment is over illuminated. There is light everywhere. It's as if she's being literally like pushed into the light after having this sadness and this weight of the mourning, of the loss, of just being sad and sad and sad. Now all of a sudden this episode is all about absence of darkness. And you know what? Maybe because I've just had a really bad week and had a lot of, you know, SHITE to deal with. This really resonated with me, the light and the fact that all the light that we have in this episode is never countered by hyperactivity. You know, usually when we have light and positive energy portrayed in a show or in a movie, the characters react accordingly to that light. So if you have something very light and airy and open, the characters would also be, yay, wee, you know. But Carrie isn't like that. There's this beautiful balance, I feel, of the overexposure of the scenes in contrast to the pace. There's a light, slightly slower pace to everything. The rhythm, it's very paced. It's a rhythm that is still dealing with shadows, but the cinematography, the photography is all about light. So you have the internal trials and tribulations of the characters, which are coming from a place of shadow, but they are placed in an environment of pure light. I loved the contrast. A little tiny nod to perhaps Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. You know, that movie is a masterpiece. Sorry, Stephen King, I know you don't like the movie just because Stanley Kubrick was more successful with the movie than you were with the book. But hey, Stephen, it's okay. Girl, you got so many wonderful books out there and concepts and movies. Let Stanley have one. Come on. The Shining is a masterpiece. What Stanley did in The Shining was he created the first horror movie ever that did not have shadows. It was all shot in light. And he said, I wanted horror to be portrayed in light. Now, minus the last scene where we are in the maze at night. But even then, where Jack Nicholson is chasing his son, even then, the spotlights are illuminating every corner of the maze. So even at night, we have light. Now, again, to the Oompa Loompas reviewing this show only in negative terms from episode to episode and garnering more and more views just because they realize that by being negative while reviewing the show, they get more and more views. Shade has been thrown at the font of And Just Like That. How ugly the font is. You know, at the beginning of the show. Well, if an Oompa Loompa did a little bit of research, an Oompa Loompa would have realized something. That this duality was not by accident. The duality between that blue font that they used, juxtaposed on the Oh, thank you. Thank you for supporting the fashion bunker, Sidonie. So sweet of you. Thank you, sweetie. They use the same color of blue as the opening credits of The Shining by Stanley Kubrick. Also, a movie portraying light everywhere, but the only darkness and the shadows are within the characters. So to me, it was so fascinating to see this blue font, not the, mind you, the color of the font. The actual font is quite different. The Shining font is different from the And Just Like That font, but it's the color that was really interesting. It was as if I was seeing a Sex and the City version of The Shining beginning. And so, to a film geek like me, little details like that mean the world. So, yes, I enjoyed both the font and the color of And Just Like That in this episode. Now, are there problems? Yes, there are problems. Like, for example, when Carrie goes with Charlotte into the storage room, girl, I don't know about you, but I have never seen a storage room in New York, well, East or West Coast for that matter, that is so empty. A huge storage room that is like, and by the way, Carrie hired people to fill the storage room. When people are hired to fill a storage room, they work like little Tetris. They put everything together to compact it all together. But like she enters this storage space, which is lofty. You can walk around the boxes. There's so much room everywhere. I'm like, that's not how a storage space. I mean, unless you're not a billionaire and you told them specifically to get you double the size of a storage space that you actually need and to leave all the space in between, because otherwise a storage room does not look like the stock room of a very, very, very expensive furniture store. It just doesn't. So that was a little bit like, this is a story, girl. Let me move in there right now because that looks really comfortable to me. That's not how a storage room looks like. But anyway, it doesn't matter. At least it gave us a moment of depth so that the characters could walk around the boxes. So I get it for like a visual depiction of them being in that storage room and Carrie diving into her past, into her memories with Big, trying to avoid Big at any cost. That's her darkness right now. That's her shadow, dealing with the loss of Big. So she's in the storage room with Charlotte, and Charlotte wants to help and says, okay, now you bought your new apartment, which is empty, very spacious. Let's go to your storage room and see if we can find some bed sheets, a lamp, something that you can take from the storage room into your new apartment to make it feel more like home. So they go in there and Carrie, starts, quite well. She finds a beautiful little 80s art lamp. She finds her, sun hat and then opens up a box and sees Big's records and she loses it. It's just like she loses her breath. She gets super emotional. And you know what? I felt that. I really did. I felt that way of losing breath and just gasping for air from the pain of remembering the loss of a loved one. I've been there several times. So for whoever tells you that that looked fake and not natural, they just haven't lived. It's as simple as that. They just have not lived. Because if you have lived, you know that pain, you know that gasping for air, you know that paralyzing feeling of just shutting down your whole being in that moment. And Charlotte was really cool in that moment as well. She kind of was careful enough to want to help her friend, but also not be too invasive. And this is something that they mentioned in the writers' room podcast. They said Charlotte has learned. We wanted to show the audience that Charlotte has learned because she made the mistake a couple of episodes ago being too pushy. And Carrie told her, let me be destroyed. Let me be a man. Let me feel the pain. Charlotte learned. She listened. And now she's stepping back and she's saying, I want to do something, but she allowed Carrie to feel the pain. I thought that was beautiful. It's a subtle moment and you gotta want to see it to really see it. If you're watching this show just because you want to find new special ways to tear it apart, of course you're not going to want to see this moment. You're just going to focus on the bad injections and whatever that Kristen got before the show. But that can all go away. The fillers will go away. I don't want to see that anymore. Yeah, we acknowledged it. We acknowledged she went a little bit overboard with the retouching before the show started. Okay, we acknowledged it. We spoke about it a couple of episodes. Is there a need to keep repeating this? No. No. And all the people that are complaining how ageist the show is in many ways are the same people who are going to tell you, oh my gosh, she looks so ridiculous in this episode, doesn't she? You see the double standard there? It's just so not cool. And it's so transparent, by the way. So I thought that scene was moving in just the right amount. I loved the hat that Carrie found, her sun hat. There was something so romantic and touching about it. Also childish, almost like reverting back to your childhood when you felt like a princess and you wanted to all dress up. And that's the only thing she takes, really, the lamp and that hat, to this huge illuminated apartment. And then we see her in a scene where, she's wearing that hat and she's trying to do her salmon like she always likes to eat salmon. It's like the second time we see her cooking salmon. It almost feels like that's the only thing she knows how to cook, Because Big threw a joke at her at the beginning saying like, hey, you finally learned how to cook, ha ha ha. So that emptiness inside of that light, inside of that apartment, it almost felt like she's trying to escape her shadows. And of course, we know that's not possible. In any good writing, you have to confront your shadows sooner or later. So this episode was about finding a way to go into the light while at the same time accepting and embracing your shadows. And I thought it was really beautiful, you guys. I really did. Call me Cringeosaurus Rex yet again. It touched me. It struck a chord with me. It really did. Now, yeah, Black Noise, please let Kristen's bad fillers settle down. Yeah, let it be. It's gonna settle on its own. Let it be. Now, then we have, Carrie going, gosh, what's his name? I'm here. Anthony. So Anthony is here because, Stanford is gone. Otherwise, Stanford would be with Carrie, obviously. Carrie was never really big friends with Anthony, but they had to rewrite everything because, obviously, Stanford is no longer with us. So Anthony is becoming the new Stanford, right? So Anthony is kind of all of a sudden really besties with Carrie, which he wasn't in the past. So that's a little bit off. But then again, what are you going to do? They had to do something and quick. And that's how they rewrote the show. And that's okay. So now Stanford is gone. Stanford had an appointment at a plastic surgeon's office. So Anthony's going to go instead and asks Carrie to come with him. This is something that Anthony would have asked Charlotte usually because Anthony's Charlotte's best friend. But then again, now we don't have Stanford anymore. So all of a sudden, he asks Carrie to go with him and say, hey, Stanford would have wanted, just help me not get any plastic surgery done. Come with me to the doctor's office. They go. The doctor thinks Carrie wants to get plastic surgery done, not Anthony. The doctor, Carrie says, no, it's him, not me. The doctor is really weird. Total weirdo. I would not feel comfortable with that doctor at all. He felt intimidating in a weirdly sexual way. It felt really uncomfortable for me to have a doctor look at you in the eyes and say, you're so sexy. I would be like, because that's what he said, bottom line, to Anthony. Anthony's like, no, I'm here for plastic surgery, potentially. What do you think? He looks at him, he says, you're so attractive. I would be like, you know what? TMI, bye-bye. Unless, of course, I found the doctor attractive myself, and then I would be like, oh, doctor, why, is that stethoscope really hard in your pocket, or are you just happy to see me? And I would be like, let's go out on a date, darling, like Blanche Devereaux would do. Again, here we go with the Golden Girls connection. Do you remember in the Golden Girls, Blanche Devereaux feeling super bad about herself because all of the other people at her class reunion looked younger than her. They had plastic surgery done. She felt old. She feels old in another episode when she hits menopause and she wants to get plastic surgery done. And then long story short, the doctor that was supposed to perform the surgery on her actually asks her out on a date. And she says, well, if a plastic surgeon who could have any body shape he wants decided to go out with me the way I look now, that's the best compliment I could get. And she did go out on a date with that plastic surgeon. So anyway, now back to And Just Like That. he kind of, you don't know, is he flirting with Anthony? Or, but at the same time, it's kind of cool that a doctor that wants to earn money, actually tells his potential client, you don't need plastic surgery. Save yourself the money. That was kind of cool of him, right? But the odd sexuality going on there, ugh, I felt no, no. Anyway, back to Carrie. He's like, but we can fix you up, girl. And then of course we go through her dealing with that shadow of the time that has passed. A lot of people pointing out the ageism here again. Oh my God, here we go, pointing out how old they are. I'm not so sure if it was for that reason, but for me, it felt more like her dealing with the 15 years that have passed since we've last seen her relationship with Big. It's as if that aging comment at the doctor's office was not about, oh, look, an old woman. No, I don't think so. And I think whoever falls for that is a little bit, sorry, dumb. But it was more about her facing, when he puts her in front of the computer and he kind of, we get this morphing into Carrie's face like we know her from the original show in the late 90s. So all they did was morphed her today face with the face from the beginning of the show. It's kind of like the Carrie before she met Big. So this is not about age. This is about experience and life that she has lived. And it's almost as if that doctor is promising her, hey, if you get the surgery done, I will bring you back to the time before you knew Big. So this has nothing to do with ageism. This has nothing to do with repeating the nth time, oh, look how old these women have become. Absolutely nothing. And whoever sees it that way, sorry for you. So here we are, she reflecting on the promise of reverting back to before she met Big, before the pain began. So it's a thought process. She's going through thinking whether or not she wants... Hold on, let me take a little sippy of my coffee here. And just like that, I finished my coconut milk latte macchiato. Okay. Oh my God, this is so good. I'm going to need to refill it. So here we are. Let's ponder on that, whether or not Carrie can manage, because we already seen her break down just by looking at Big's records. She has a lot to still work through, right? Charlotte is going through her own motions with Rose, Rock Rose. Rose wants to be Rock. Rose is Rock. And Rock wants to have a different corner of their bedroom with different stuff set up without the inscription Rose all over the bed. And then Charlotte says, but somebody painted this for you. And then Rock says, yeah, but we got to move on. And then we have the confrontation with the dolls from all over the world, cultural appropriation, a little woke moment. Both Charlotte's kids say, Mom, those dolls just ain't it. Don't do it, Mom. Don't do it. Cultural appropriation is then mirrored again in Seema and Carrie going downtown Soho to find a... Well, actually, I don't remember if actually they were going to find the outfit just for Seema, or if by that, I think just for Seema. Yeah, for Seema, because Seema was going to go home. She was going to celebrate Diwali with her family. And then while they're in this wonderful shop, traditional shop of these gorgeous outfits, Seema grants permission to Carrie to also buy herself a traditional Indian outfit in that case, right? And after Carrie asks, hey, if you're all alone, go into your family's house to celebrate, and you don't want to be, I could join you. Carrie kind of like pokes out, like, I want to come too. I want to come. Why don't you invite me to your party? I want to come. And Seema says, okay, you can come. And you are allowed to buy this outfit. And of course, Carrie mentions, hey, is this cultural appropriation? Am I allowed to wear one of your traditional outfits? And she said, no, I'm inviting you to. This is not cultural appropriation. It's Carrie is super thankful. She buys a gorgeous outfit, by the way. We see her then in the next scene going to Seema's family's house with Seema together. They get picked up, with the driver, of course. They're rich. Turns out Seema is lying to her family about being together with a dude that she says, I'm together with this white dude. And she just kind of prefers to do that rather than tell them the truth that she's single because her parents keep poking at her. Get married, get married, get married. So Carrie finds out that Seema has this imaginary boyfriend just to kind of have an easier situation at home. It's a moment where we get to learn a little bit more about Seema and we see her vulnerability because up until that moment she was this I cannot fail type of superhero, like powerhouse of a woman that could do anything. And now we see the fragile side. So that was an interesting little glimpse into the fragility of it all. We didn't see much of Miranda yet. Miranda is directing the episode, you guys. So it's not like Cynthia Nixon can be in every episode. But still, she still managed to put herself in there masturbating while her son is trying to talk to her. Now, that was kind of like, okay, so she has this vibrator going on in her bedroom. Her son, Brady, wants to talk to her. Brady, by the way, another name that's also used in The Shining. Just putting it out there. Go look it up, as Madonna would say. And I'm like, okay, girl, you can just turn off the vibrator, answer your son's question, he leaves, and then you turn it on again and you get with it. But no, she kind of lost control and was just like in it to win it. To a point where she kind of climaxing told her son to hurry up or to do whatever he had to do because I think he had like a math test or something coming up tomorrow. So she's kind of telling him to do what he has to do while she's climaxing. I also really don't understand why Brady is so connected to anything sexual in this show, whether it's him copulating with his girlfriend, which we've seen in the first episode, or whether it's him kissing his girlfriend, like deep throating her at the music recital, or whether it's him witnessing the sounds that his mother makes while she's playing with the pleasure toy. Like, why is he only always put in a position where things are hyper sexualized? I do not know. Maybe there's going to be a reason for this coming up, or maybe he's just a character that's kind of, because up until now he's just been used as a joke, really. I don't know anything about him. I thought I would get to know something about him during the funeral episode when he started talking to Che, because then for the first time we got to see him like as his own human being, like chill, somebody offered him, to smoke. And I thought, oh, okay, now we're going to get to know him a bit more. But no, Miranda arrived and, blocked it all off. So I do not know where his story is heading. And sadly, I'm not interested either because they're not giving me anything. And the joke has run its course. It's actually been gross in the first. I don't need to see a 17-year-old fornicating with his girlfriend. I just don't. So fine, they did it in the first step. Okay, we get the pun, we get the joke. But then it's episode 6. By now, it's run its course. If you don't deliver something more substantial, then I don't care for the character anymore. Just like I don't care for Steve anymore. I mean, as sad as this sounds, Steve wasn't even in this episode. And it was directed by Miranda. So Miranda does not want her husband in the show. I know it was directed by Cynthia Nixon, but I'm just joking. But anyway, Steve can't hear, poor thing. He's not really there anymore. And this is just about Miranda fantasizing in this episode about Chase. So we have these... Che is surrounded by light. Again, we have this light, everywhere light. But the light hides a shadow, and the shadow is Miranda's truth. She's not living out her truth with Steve. But every time she fantasizes about Che, the visuals are of pure light. So Miranda is thinking about Che while she's using her toys. And she will be thinking about Che at the end of the episode, where when she finally decides, after what happened in episode 5 in Carrie's kitchen, Miranda finally, after some weeks have passed or some days have passed, decides to, because Che has not contacted her since, she decides to write Che a text message saying, "Hey, it's Rambo. Let's hang sometime." I mean, spoiler alert. I've seen the teaser for episode 7. So if you don't want to see the teaser for episode 7, you are warned what I'm about to say now. But it's on YouTube. It's not something non-official. It's official from HBO Max. They released a teaser, a 1-minute teaser for episode 7. Spoiler alert. 3, 2, 1. Here comes the spoiler for episode 7. Che did not answer Miranda's text message, and Miranda is pissed, honey. So we saw a glimpse of episode 7, and Miranda gonna be like, "Girl, how long do I have to wait for an answer?" So anyway, there's gonna be a confrontation coming episode 7. Right. I mean, I don't know what to say. But the biggest confrontation we've seen in this episode is the 3 girls, Carrie, Miranda, and Charlotte, having a picnic. This is the scene that we've seen in the teaser for the entire show. Right before the show premiered, we've seen a couple of scenes of them having that picnic. Beautiful lighting. I think the cinematography was really great. Well done for the photography. Interesting scene where we find out that Carrie never told Charlotte that Miranda had a little something going on in the kitchen with Che. Miranda admits to Charlotte that she did have a finger lickalicious situation with Che in the kitchen. Well, Charlotte is upset. She's not really upset with Miranda. She's more upset with Carrie, that Carrie didn't tell her nothing. And Carrie's like, "Leave me out of it. Want some cheese?" Then, since Carrie doesn't want to have anything to do with this, Charlotte then turns her wrath to Miranda and starts kind of attacking Miranda like, "You're married. Why are you doing that?" The moral spiel that we know Charlotte does. It's part of her character. So Charlotte really pokes at Miranda. Miranda is not having it. Miranda just stands up and says, "I'm done with all of y'all's judging me and this and that, blah, 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 blah." They threw in a little bit of the age thing, like time is passing, necklines, wrinkles. I don't know. They mentioned something like that. It was all irrelevant for me. For me, what was relevant is like, oh my gosh, I remember from the original show, Miranda is the one. Sometimes Samantha did too. And in fact, interesting that we're going to have Samantha mentioned in this scene. Samantha is the one that sometimes, when Carrie was really mean to her, judgmental, Samantha would stand up and leave and would be pissed. Miranda also had her exit moments in the OG show. And we get a Miranda exit moment again. And this is an interesting point because we know usually when Miranda gets this upset and leaves, she's gone. And then you need an episode to pass or a couple of scenes to pass, and then one of the other characters starts talking to her again. But here something changes. Something happens that never happened before. As Miranda is leaving, super upset for being judged by her best friend, Carrie jumps up and runs after Miranda and is super upset and sad, at the verge of tears, desperate, and tells her, "No, you will not leave. We already lost Samantha. I'm not going to lose another one." And again, that felt obviously to me like, hey, we lost Kim. I don't want to lose you too. And of course she says, "I've lost big. Some of us, we just don't have the time. We don't have the time anymore to play these games." And again, somebody's going to point out, oh, again, the ageism, reminding us how old they are. And Miranda standing up from the bench saying, "Oh, my leg fell asleep. Help me, Carrie, leave." My leg used to fall asleep even when I was 20. It has nothing to do with age. Whatever. Anyway. Miranda stops. And here we have this beautiful moment of their maturity. She listens. She doesn't just shut down and leave. She stops and is free of her own judgment, of her own anger, and just listens to Carrie and feels Carrie. And I love that moment. And Carrie's like, hey, we've just lost so much. There's no time for this crap. Just come back. If it takes us a whole day to discuss this through, we will. But we will discuss it together. And then it's something about change. And then she said, some of us just don't have the luxury to stay the same way as we are. Because Big died, I gotta change. I have to move on. And they, all three of them acknowledge, accept. And it's a wonderful scene set in pure light. And again, we have this gorgeous lighting, no shadows anywhere moment. And they keep enjoying their picnic. After having acknowledged that time is precious. It's nothing to do with age. Absolutely nothing to do with age. Just to do with the simple truth that before you know it, time is gone. And you can kick a bucket at the age of 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 90, 100, 150. But time is precious. And I love how they acknowledged it as the sun is slowly setting, but it's still super illuminated. It's just beautiful. I don't know. And the pacing of the show could have been even slower. I kind of craved even slower pacing for this episode personally. But anyway. So, of course, then let's fast forward for a moment. Carrie is at Seema's house. They're done with the celebrations. They're now in the car traveling back home. And Seema gives Carrie a little red bracelet, kind of to tell her this is to remind you of your strength. Carrie says, I really hate the apartment. Like, too much light. Plus, there's this buzzing noise somewhere. I don't know where the noise is coming from. And it's just driving me crazy. Also, very typical for The Shining. The Overlook Hotel. This is how it felt to me. Carrie being in that apartment that she just purchased was like being in the Overlook Hotel. And just like Jack Torrance would hear Brady talking, but Jack Torrance would also hear other spirits talking. They were all from within. It was actually the hotel talking to him. Carrie hears this buzzing noise. And it's annoying her. It's irritating her. She doesn't know where it's coming from, but it's constantly there. And every time she looks for help and tries to, buzz somebody downstairs who's working in, management of the house, like, hey, can you come in and help? Oh, they never can. It's either too late or they're on a break or the person responsible is not available. So it's always like in a dream when you're running away from something, but you can never really find a solution to the problem. That apartment, even though it's flooded with light, is full of internal shadows being cast to remind oneself of loneliness, solitude, isolation. And it just reminds you that no matter how far away you run away from your troubles and your problems, they're always going to catch up with you. It was very much the Overlook Hotel for me, that apartment. Of course, portrayed in a very Sex and the City-esque way. And in fact, actually, now to think of it, another little detail that is so similar to The Shining. When in The Shining, Wendy, Shelley Duvall, who I adore that actress so much. Shelley Duvall and Jack Nicholson, or Jack Torrance, and Wendy Torrance. When they just arrived to the Overlook Hotel and they're walking through the corridors of the hotel, and the people are explaining to them how the hotel works, how they will spend a winter alone and isolated, how the kitchen works, where they will find their food. Wendy is dressed, I don't want to, it's not identical, it was different time, but there's the same attire, same motion, the boots, that whole concept of how she's Carrie and Wendy. It feels like Wendy Torrance entered the Overlook Hotel when Carrie enters the apartment with Anthony. And Anthony's like Jack Torrance in a way, but of course, very different storyline there. So they're playing something here, in this episode. This apartment, a very, very fascinating little thing they did there with that apartment and with the blue color font in the apartment of the show. Oh, Debbie says, "Isn't it Grady in The Shining, not Brady?" Could be. I would have to look that up again. Are you talking book or movie though? Because they did change some names as well between the book and the movie. And I've read the book and I've seen the movie. Oof. And I've seen the continuation, the second part. It ain't it. Anyway, oh, you can check out the review of the Doctor Sleep also on my channel. I reviewed that video as well. I reviewed that movie as well. Um, Now, Carrie says in the car to Seema on the way back after the Diwali celebration festivity at Seema's home, parents' home, "I don't like your apartment." Seema was like totally chill with it. She's like, "That's okay." She's like, "I got, kind of." She wanted to say like, "I got it because you're my friend and I didn't want to disappoint you." Seema says, "Don't worry about it. It's an apartment. We'll sell it. We'll get you something better." So it's now we're in Carrie's apartment. She's been to that plastic surgeon, right? She's been to the Diwali. She's been through a lot of these different situations, and now she's back home. And finally, we have this moment of two important things happening. The first important thing, she's looking at her face as it is, and the splendor that it is at the age that it is, and she accepts that face. She doesn't want to get plastic surgery. First important thing, the Carrie necklace is there in front of her. She lifts it up, puts it on. Carrie is back. Second important thing, oh, I wrote it down. We hear her off screen, saying, "And just like that, I remembered how much I loved the past 15 years. But the second important moment is not what she said. It's when she says it. For the first time ever in the new show, Carrie's off-screen voice is not the last thing we hear before the episode ends. No, now her off-screen voice is shifting into the show. So she says this off-screen a couple of minutes before the end, which is bringing that old Carrie back into the core of the show. So she says, "And just like that, I remembered how much I loved the last 15 years. She opens up the box of vinyls with Big's vinyls. She's not crying anymore. A lot of the vinyls have already been placed in her library. We see that she's already dealt with it. She can now deal with Big's presence and past in her life. And then she's opening up the box with his clothes. We see his garter belt laying there and his jacket, which she's going to wear in the last scene. She's going to have his garter belt on her red dress, and she's going to have his black jacket covering her red dress in the last scene. After she said, and just like that, I remembered how much I love these past 15 years. She plays one of Big's records. Of course, we have that wonderful tune from the time, from Big's youth, perhaps. And it's a great little tune and melody. And as that is happening, we still don't have the end of the episode. Then we get to see Charlotte and Rock, super happy. Rock covers up the name Rose on the wall with another poster. Charlotte is putting away the culturally inappropriate dolls, but is kind of happy to move on to another. Charlotte is learning. She's learning, and she's happy to learn with a nostalgia of things she's letting go, but also looking forward to new things. She loves her gender fluid child, Rock, so much, of course, and Lily. And then we have Miranda, again, there's still no Steve, but Miranda sends off that text message to Che, which, spoiler alert, we know that, the answer ain't gonna come. And then Carrie goes down the stairs in that beautiful red dress with Big's jacket and Big's garter belt. And she exits into pure light. Everything is white light surrounding her, and that's the end of the episode. And just like that, episode 6 was over. Now, did I like it? Yeah, I did. I did. I know it's not a popular opinion, and a lot of people are not enjoying. Aisha says, "I'm loving Charlotte's wardrobe." Yeah, it's super conservative, but in a very Charlotte way. By the way, speaking of wardrobe, I loved the wardrobe in this episode as well. And actually, speaking of that, Uh, Speaking of the wardrobe, this is from US News or Us News, celebrity style. And just like that, costume designers address claims that Sex and the City's Cynthia Nixon thinks she knows everything. Now, you know that a couple of episodes ago, I was telling you guys that the article came out where Patricia Field threw shade at Cynthia Nixon, saying, well, Sarah Jessica Parker thinks she knows everything, and she does. Cynthia Nixon thinks she knows everything, but she doesn't. So it's probably really hard for Molly Rogers, the new costume stylist designer for the show, to deal with all of these girls who have inflated egos. So the runners of the show, or the costume department of the show, setting the record straight on Friday, February 7, and just like that, costume designers Molly Rogers and Danny Santiago responded to Sex and the City costume designer Patricia Field's claims that Cynthia Nixon thinks she knows everything when it comes to clothing. I know those gals. So this is what Patricia Field, right, has been quoted to have said, allegedly. I know those gals. Sarah Jessica Parker thinks she knows everything, and she does. Cynthia Nixon thinks she knows everything, and she doesn't. Field said in her controversial December 2021 interview with the Sunday Times. Even today, when I speak with Molly, it's about Cynthia. I say, I remember what you're going through. When asked about the comment about Nixon, who famously plays Miranda Hobbs, Molly Rogers told WWD, a lot of really seasoned actors and actresses have been in the business for so long that they have a shorthand to say, oh, that's not going to work, because you've just been in enough fittings to know, Rogers told the outlet. According to Rogers and Santiago, the vibes were positive overall. For us, everybody was so excited about being back that it was like the best possible high school reunion. Everybody was just ready to get at it. That in mind, Rogers and Santiago have faced their fair share of drama since the Sex and the City revival started airing. Most notably, fans expressed their distaste when they spotted Sarah Jessica Parker wearing a dress that was misidentified as Forever 21. We made a video about that as well a couple of months ago. I was pissed. Rogers exclusively told Us Weekly about the fan response. It was the first thing that really cropped up, and it was negative. For Santiago, the whole saga came as shock. He initially scooped up the label-free dress, which has since been identified as Raga, at a thrift shop for $5 or $6. In addition to thrifting, the costume designers found items in Parker's archives and ThreadUp, an online retailer that sells vintage finds. In fact, Santiago and Rogers ended up partnering with the company to create an edit of clothes and accessories that would benefit the Willie Garson Fund. So that's that. Isn't that fascinating? I do believe that probably, maybe Molly Rogers and Mr. Santiago were told to say what they said. You know, to say like, no, we had no issue with these people. I mean, you're protecting your job, you're protecting the show, you're protecting your colleagues. Who knows? But I do believe that, listen, if you've been in the business as an actor for decades and decades and decades, you know your body. When they're fitting you and they want you to wear something, you know if it's going to work or if it's not going to work. I mean, unless you're not acting a character that is triple your size and they put a fat suit on you and all that stuff, and that's different. But if you're yourself with your own body, you know, they're using your body for the show, they're not morphing you into another body, then you know. Thank you for subscribing, Albert. Then you know your body. So I get it, what Molly is saying. I kind of agree with her. On another note, what is very fascinating also came out about, and just like that, another spoiler I got for you guys. So this is a big spoiler. If you don't want to hear anything about the final episode, tune out now. Spoilers for episode 10 coming in 3, 2, 1. Okay. So allegedly, it is said Oh, thank you for subscribing, Martina. In another article, that Sarah Jessica Parker is going to deal with Big's ashes in the final episode in Paris, throwing them off some bridge. And Big is supposed to come to her and talk to her one last time. Remember, I told you he's going to have to come back through flashbacks like a ghost throughout the show. He was supposed to. But now, with Chris's allegations of SA, allegedly, they cut him out. So, if this is true, it's really sad because, again, the human being, Chris, did what he did or didn't do, allegedly. But Mr. Big is a character that has nothing to do with Chris. And the series has been shot for other reasons than for fighting against or for the allegations that he's going through right now. So, allegedly, they're going to cut him out. So there's no more Mr. Big at all in the show. He's not coming back in her visions, not talking to her. In fact, there is one scene in episode 6 that we just watched now. Carrie is in her old apartment in these pastel colors. She has this like pastel knitted blanket, really gorgeous looking, and kind of a cozy sweater, and she's sitting on her chaise lounge. And it's kind of, out of the blue, they cut to that scene, and she just kind of is like reading a magazine, and she just kind of stands up and says, "This is not healthy. I can't do this anymore." And we don't, and then cut. That scene is super short, and it feels placed randomly. And I think to myself, why did they leave that short little snippet there? It seems almost as if there was something else happening there. Now, do you know what I'm talking about? It's a very, very short clip. And remember, I was telling you in episode 1 and 2, after Big passed away, I said, they worked with Chris throughout the show, and he comes back to Carrie in visions. But then the allegations began, and then obviously he didn't come back in visions. But there are sometimes moments where you think they cut him out. He could have been talking to her. So there's this one scene in episode 6 that is super short of her almost as if she were reacting to him, but we don't see him, we don't hear him. So maybe they cut him out there. So I don't know. But since I've heard the news about episode 10, and since, Sarah says, yes, I saw a cut in this episode where Carrie was clearly talking to Big. Oh, there you go, Sarah. So it wasn't just me. Tati Felix, thank you for subscribing, sweet. So it wasn't just me, right? It felt like, why is it such a short little clip? And why? She's just reading a fashion magazine. Why would she just like say, oh, I'm going crazy, I shouldn't do this? Like, do what? Read a fashion magazine? Why is that crazy all of a sudden? Yeah, that was a weird shot, says Ollie. She was talking to her connection to the apartment, says Silala. Okay, so that was another The Shining moment. She was talking to the Overlook Hotel. Possibly, but there's no context. You know what I mean, Silala? I didn't feel the context of the apartment. So Jessica Parker used to be really amazing friends with Chris, so I feel for her, says Orsi. Yeah, they cut 2 scenes out. One last episode, says Katie. And she feels protective of this character, says Kate. Sarah says, Big is possessing the lamp. Woo! That's a good one. Delusions in dementia, says Ollie. Oh, we're still on the dementia train? I don't know at this point, because I don't think she is. Come on. I hope she's not. She was definitely talking to her apartment. Jack says she was definitely talking to her apartment / herself in that scene. Okay, Jack, but they didn't give us a context. Why is she going crazy? For what reason? Like, why say that and not something else instead? The context was her wanting to buy a new apartment, says Jack. Ah, thank you, What If. Yeah, she says, this isn't healthy. Yeah. Like, what does it mean? Anna P says, hi, Dacob. Hey, Anna. I've watched the show until episode 5. That was the last straw for me. I tried so hard to love and just like that, despite not liking it much since episode 1, but on episode 5 was just too much. The wokeness is just no. Think about it this way. The wokeness could also be really a mirror to us, honestly. It's like all of us are going through this, you guys. Cancel culture on social media much. To me, this show really reflects still our need to adapt. Because we think we're ready, we think we're there, but a lot of us are really not there. We're just not. And why does the wokeness irritate you? You should ask yourself so much. Why? Because you know these things, because you're ready for the change, because you're already living inside the change, or does it irritate you because it kind of points out your mishaps, what you're still lacking? I'm not talking about you in particular. When Anna, I'm not talking about you, sweetie. Don't think I'm talking about you. I'm talking about us as a society. Are we annoyed about the wokeness in this show because we have already moved away from there? Or are we annoyed because it's actually showing us what we're lacking? Just food for thought. And as I said, I was annoyed by it too at the beginning. But then with time, it got better for me. I'm enjoying the learning process. Yes, these are things I already know, cultural appropriation and the this and the that, but I'm flowing through it almost as if those were tender moments, like Charlotte's learning process about letting go of her dolls, adapting to, the daughter that she loves so much is no longer a daughter. It's not Rose, it's Rock. Um, it's a moment, and if you embrace it for what it is and you open up to it, you won't feel repelled by it anymore, I feel. Now, another fascinating moment in the show was, hold on, Dr. Naya Wallace. Wrote down the name because I'm really bad with names. Karen Pittman, right? It's the first time that we get outside of the core of our three ladies, and Dr. Naya Wallace gets her own scene with her own group of friends. So Dr. Naya Wallace brings in a side, like another couple, and they get their own scene, and we get this storyline of Naya. She's been struggling with this whole concept of, does she really want a child? She's having difficulties getting pregnant. And she has this moment of having dinner with her friends, of which one is Fertile Myrtle, we call her, who always gets pregnant. And of course, she has news for them. She's pregnant yet again with a third baby. And Naya's like, okay, well, anyway, so then the evening ends with this bombastic climax of her and her, I think they're married, right? It's her husband. And she says, if this a gorgeous moment did not put a baby in me, I don't want to do it anymore. So we're hoping that it works out for the best for them. But I'm struggling to understand why the need for that storyline. And I don't know. Maybe that is a point where the show is attackable by all the people talking about ageism, because they're like, well, the other girls are too old to have kids anymore. So Dr. Naya is kind of like the last one in that age that can still have a baby. So let's touch base on that woke moment as well, of like, at that age, last train, catch the last train before it's too late to have a baby. It does feel a bit forced, the baby situation, because I'm like, why add that complication on top of all the other complications we already have? So I do see how that is a vulnerable point in the show where you could poke at it and say, I can see how that is a vulnerable moment. Does wokeness mean evolved? Asks Kate, or aware? I think it depends for who. Oh, Asia, yes. Naya is Miranda's teacher. Yeah, yeah. Black Noise says exactly. It's not about wokeness. It's bringing up the fact that the Sex and the City girls were cutting edge and progressive once, but now they aren't anymore. It's about them adjusting to a world that is. And you know what? I I agree. Oh, Anna P says, I see your point. To me, it's annoying with the ways it's done. It feels like they want to educate, and I'm here for the entertainment. Either way, thanks for reading my comment and respect my opinion. Anna P, of course, I respect everyone's opinion. As long as we all share our opinions with respect, we all have super valid points, Anna. Super valid points because, you know why? Because we all love this show. Either we love it for what it was or for what it is. And the second emotions are involved in the show, in what we feel. The rationale kind of leaves us a little bit, and it's normal, it's human nature. So, of course, we feel bad because we wanted it to be maybe this like lighthearted thing that it was back in the day, and now there's like a little more subtext, more texture to it. And we feel irritated because something that we knew is no longer there. But Carrie addresses exactly this concept when, at their picnic table. And she says, some of us don't have the luxury to stay the same. And this is a very important moment to me. And you guys, it's really true. Forget about the wokeness of the writing of some of the scenes that are cringe in the show. In our lives today, we really, I don't know about y'all, but I felt that pressure. Let me tell you, 2021 for me was that moment when I got that fire under my butt. And it was like, girl, you got to change some. There's no staying stable because this world is a mess with the lockdown that shall remain unnamed on YouTube, right? The lockdown situation, the being confused about what happens next. Are you going to lose your job? You have to reinvent yourself. You have to redefine yourself. At the same time, you're home a lot, so you're spending more time on the internet. You're experiencing more and more of the cancel culture, the trolling, the bullying online, the mean-spirited nature of human beings. The more they're locked up and the more mean they become, the more depressed they are because they're losing their jobs. There's no money to pay rent and food. The more mean you become with your other fellow co-human beings. And you realize something has to change because the way we're sinking on this ship, if we don't change nothing, it's going to end real bad. So that fire that was sparked under my butt last year pushed me to change, to listen, to open up. Yes, I'm a very emotional person. Yes, I can get riled up. You can, rile up my feathers and you can poke at me and provoke me. People love to do that, especially if you're a content creator on YouTube. I mean, just read the comments underneath my other and just like that videos. I mean, some people have nothing but hate inside of them and they write the meanest things. But I got news for you, trolls. I've been on this platform for such a long time. And the funniest thing is, when they think they've ruffled my feathers by writing something mean at me, I just enjoy it so much because that's engagement, darling. Because if there's one thing that trolls and non-trolls alike love, that's drama. So bring it on. Because the more of that, and the more the channel grows. Just letting you know. So, for who thinks they're going to hurt me by calling me terrible names, by saying that I am dumb, by calling this, all you're doing is actually making my channel grow. And thank you for clicking on the video, by the way. Thumb it up if you haven't thus far. And subscribe to my channel because there's a lot more reviews coming. Black Noise says, 2021 pushed me to pursue starting a family solo instead of waiting for a perfect person. Oh, good for you, Black Noise. And you know what? Good for you. Because that future is exactly the point. You're thinking about the future. You know how many people in 2021, and I know because I've been live streaming every Saturday the entire year. I've been posting a video a day the entire year. I have dealt with comments on a daily basis, and I've dealt with people, many people saying through their comments that they don't see a future, that they don't want to even see a future. But the fact that you made that choice and that decision for yourself and that you're going for it, you've decided for yourself, you're like, okay, hold on. The way the world is ticking right now, I'm wasting my time. So I'm going to take matters in my own hands, and I'm going to see my future. And this is how I envision it. And I'm going to work towards that future. That, to me, just gave me goosebumps, by the way. This is why human beings are so amazing to me. Because we have hope. And as we were talking just the other weeks, remember we were talking about Pandora's box, opening Pandora's box, and all the evils of the world come up. But what was at the bottom of the box? What was left inside there? Hiding and waiting for the right moment to show itself. Hope. This show, for me, came in the right time. I feel hope when I watch it. Yes, the writing is sometimes clumsy. They don't convey their desire to do good in the best way. They don't convey it in the most smooth way. But they try. And there's love in that show, and there's hope. And to me, that's really more than I could ever hope for from a show right now in these times. And so, let me tell you. Everybody's congratulating Black Noise. It's going to be fabulous, darling. You know. Oh, Jack says, I'm reading a book at the moment called Hope Against Hope by Mandelstam. I do not, wait, because it's so far away, the chat. I can't really read if there's an R. Oh, Mandelstam. I don't know if I pronounced the name correctly. Asia says, good for you, girls. Happy for you. Oh, man. The baby storyline is about not wanting a baby, says Apples. Very different from Charlotte's. Yeah. No, I get it. But did we need that on top of everything else? Karen Pittman is a wonderful actress. I loved seeing her in the morning show. So whatever scene they give her, I'm glad. Because there's some natural elegance and flow about her that is just wonderful. So I'm all for it. For her getting any scene. But the storyline, they could have given her something more interesting. I don't know. Just saying. Katie says she's fantastic. Yeah, she's gorgeous. Fantastic. Super talented. She could have just been a teacher without the baby storyline, says Apples. Yeah. Exactly, Apples. I mean, and I'm not saying for her to be a teacher just to function as an add-on to Miranda's story. No, not at all. She could have brought in so much knowledge about history, about her sphere of education into the lives of these girls. And there could have been mysteries brought into the show connected to history, to American history and heritage as well. And not in a woke way, but just in a really interesting way. Learning history, you guys, doesn't have to be just boring. It can be really, really interesting as well. And there's a lot of mysteries that are still unsolved in the past. And adding sprinkling in a little bit of that sexual zest of Sex and the City in a historic context can be a lot of fun. I think it was a little bit of a missed opportunity. But then again, if they do a season 2, they might go in that direction. I don't know. Who knows? But I mean, I would have loved to see a little bit of American history kind of, or revisiting it, not by teaching you about how history was, but like, for example, Carrie giving you an off-screen voiceover parallel of like, oh, in 17 something something, this person did that as the story wants it from the newspapers. Isn't it funny how the same thing happened today? And then you have like a mirrored scenario, modern day thing happening that is similar to what happened back then. Just saying, they could have kind of implemented Naya in such a more intelligent way into the show that way, but they didn't. But whatever, it is what it is, Do we know if ratings are good, by the way? My feelings is that ratings are not very good, but I could be wrong, says Anna P. I think the ratings are great. I think a lot of people are watching. A lot of people are enjoying shredding the show to bits. People are having a lot of fun talking shit about the show. But they love watching. They keep coming back for more. You know what I mean? So I think the ratings aren't bad. Imran, Tariq, history is eye-opening. Yes, we just got to be careful, you guys, because, history has that sneaky tendency of being written by the winners, never by the losers. So we got to keep an open eye and take everything with a grain of salt, because history has that manipulative tendency in its nature. This is also interesting for us to know today because of social media. We get to hear many different versions of a story. No longer are people secluded to just hearing about a book, history book written by a winner, but we also get losers to talk online. Even though they do try to silence us. Biggest example, Instagram is just silencing many communities at the moment. They're deleting a lot of Instagram accounts. They want to silence your truth. They've deleted 2 of my accounts. My community was growing in a very healthy way. We were sharing opinions. Yeah, a lot of people, way up high there, they don't want people to unite. They don't want people to be together. They want us all to separate. So why are we the dumb ones who even amongst each other fight and bicker? You guys in the comment section down below write all the troll comments. Instead of unifying and being together and helping each other out, you think you're a winner by isolating yourself and spewing hate towards others. You think that makes you a winner? No, boo-boo. That makes you the victim of the system. It's the system that wanted to isolate you, make you hate everybody else so that they can control you. Well, they've done a great job. Just letting you know. If you made it thus far in the video and you're one of those trolls, you're the victim, boo-boo, not us. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thumb up this video if you've liked it. Subscribe to my channel. And until next time, any other comments you got to say? I just want to say, and just like that, never give up on love. Okay, before we end it, let me see. Alexa says, I will always get goosebumps watching Carrie strut down the stairs and something fabulous. Bring on more seasons. Hell yeah. I say it too. Sarah says, well said, Dacob. Carrie Lee says, I'm enjoying your commentary on the show more than the show itself. Oh man, you're so sweet. Thank you so much. And listen, whatever I say comes really from my heart. Sometimes I'm a very opinionated person. So sometimes things come across to some people, I've read the forums who gossip about me and they say, oh, Dacob, when he pushes that, say, I can't listen I got to be in the mood to listen to him because he's just too educational. He's like pushing on that teacher thing. No, I'm not pushing on the teacher thing. I live stream 10 hours on end on a Saturday, delivering so many different topics and content. I have to stay sharp to be able to deliver the content. So when you tune into just one video, you think, okay, well, he shot one video. No, I shoot like 10 videos in one go. So I have to stay focused so that I can deliver stuff for you guys. And that's why sometimes it comes across as if I were arrogant, but when in reality, I'm just really focusing to stay sharp to be able to deliver something to you guys. So just bear that in mind before you judge me too harshly. Of course, you're free to judge me as harshly as you want, but it all comes from the heart. And just like that, never give up on love. Love you all. See you next week. Bye.